Hello, and welcome to the 360-degree brand story, where brands come alive one brushstroke at a time. This is a bi-weekly conversation about the comprehensive nature of storytelling on the second and fourth Wednesday of the month. I am your host, Joe Mukoko, and with me is my panelist, storyteller. Let me just stop there. Storyteller, narrative breaker, all those words you can take to talk about storytelling. And we are hosted by Akiko Stories today. And my panel is Kyesubire Greg, founder of Akiko Stories. When we think about storytelling, sometimes we are restricted in terms of past narratives and only marketing. But then storytelling is part of our daily activities. Where are we going? What do we want to do? And who do we want to follow us? Everyone has a tribe. Is your tribe following you? Or are you following your tribe? We talk to sell to our tribe's mates who could be our partners, children, teams, customers, investors, partners, regulators, extended family. We look at all the dimensions of storytelling and how it helps us to execute and implement our strategy. Thank you for choosing to spend the next few minutes with us. Kyesubire, as I bring you on stage, you're so keen about storytelling. Why?
Oh, do you have 3 hours?
No, I don't have 3 hours. I just have a few minutes. Maybe one thing that makes you interested in storytelling.
So I grew up reading a lot, and I grew up reading a lot of Western literature. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with it. But I also grew up hearing things like so and so discovered Lake Victoria. So and so discovered gold or cocoa or uranium or cobalt, all that on the African continent. And I began to wonder, were my ancestors such idiots that they didn't see these things? I know idiots is a very strong word, but I really, those are the thoughts that really ran through my mind. Is it possible that my ancestors sat here and they didn't see all this stuff? Is it possible that people were unaware of what was around them? It is possible they were unaware of what was underground 2 kilometers deep. That's a possibility. But then I came to the understanding, and I said to somebody 2 weeks ago, that that person who tells a story fast is right. They set the tone, they set the narrative, they set the atmosphere. And I began to wonder whether our oral culture, because we told stories as a people, had worked as a disservice to us, and how we can harness everything we know into formats and forms that can translate and transit who we are as a people. So storytelling is important to me because the person who tells the story first is right. So if the lion will always tell the story of the hunt, then we'll only have the lion's we will never hear from the gazelle, we'll never hear from the eland. We'll never hear from the warthog, because the warthog is a mini hunter. Many of us didn't know that hyenas actually can run fast and can sustain their runs. It is a National Geographic documentary that told me that. Okay? So storytelling for me is important because the person who tells the story first is always considered right. Then who is telling our stories, and what are they saying about us?
The person who tells the story first is always right. Our topic of discussion today is founder's vision. The person who tells the story first is always right. As a founder, your brand has specific personality, characteristics, visions, mission, and reason for existence. And that means then this brand needs to be communicated. Your story needs to be told right. Why? Because you inspire connections. Your team, your tribe, and the community around you. The person who tells the story first tells it right. Before we talk about who we need to connect with as founders, how important is it for the founder to keep this in perspective? That the person who tells the story first tells it right. For their story not to be told by someone else, but for them to tell their story.
So let me tweak what you said a little bit. The person who tells the story first is considered right. Let me tweak it to that. Because if you come and you buy, let's say I'm a designer, you come and get a shirt from me. I've not talked about my designs, but I have maybe an online presence. And then I make a mistake on your shirt. And you go out and you say how my work is bad, my quality is useless, you will cost me, for every unhappy customer, you cost yourself 10 potential customers. For every happy customer, you have 3 potential customers. So when you think about it in that light, as a founder, it is important that the right narrative goes out about your business from the start. Now, it's very easy to tell your staff, this is what we sell, but remember, and this is a lesson I learned in campus. We had a class called Intercultural Communication. It was called INS 111. In INS 111, they said meaning is internal and individual. So if I don't communicate right to all my stakeholders, everybody will understand it from their lens. And I'll give a very personal example. I always thought Coca-Cola was a soda company because Coca-Cola is what we did. I always thought their competition was other soda companies, Pepsi, for instance, or we used to have Kuguru foods here, the guys who used to do softer. We have Excel, who now do Club. So I always thought their competition was other soda companies. So I wondered why they had water. I wondered why they had juice. But their competition is anything that quenches thirst. Anything. And at that point, I was executing I was an event manager at that point, and I was one of the suppliers on the supplier list, and we're executing an event, and I walked into their offices in Nairobi, and there was a coffee making machine, branded Coca-Cola. I was like, but this is the wrong brand. They're like, we compete with anything that quenches thirst. But then we have chosen our sectors. Then I wondered and I asked them, why do you have the sunny water? They said, in every factory, they have a purification plant because there is a way the water that is mixed with the concentrate has to be so that the taste is right. So if you have a whole water purification plant, you just can bottle water. So water became a side business. But by the time I discovered this, I was my late 30s. So what we had always had in the market is that their competition is Pepsi. Until I went in and I had consistent interactions with them over a 2-year period, then my mind shifted. I was a stakeholder for them because I was a supplier. So I needed to learn the right thing to tell people when I meet them about my client. So that's why it's important at a founder. Now, I've used a very big company because 1, it's relatable, but 2, you can see the disparity between me the consumer and supplier and what the business actually does. So imagine on a much smaller scale where most of us MSME founders, we don't even know, we don't even have our story right.
We don't have our stories right. We inspire connections. We're supposed to inspire connections as founders, that people might buy into our vision and understand what we are selling or what we are communicating. Who are these people that we need to connect with in our ecosystem or tribe, as I call, for them to buy into our vision and make it easier for us to push our products or services into the market?
So the most common stakeholder we talk about is the customer, because we say the customer is always right. And we say that all you need is an idea and a customer to start a business. But there are many more audiences. I believe when we were doing full circle storytelling, that must have been the second episode. We were talking about holistic storytelling. We mentioned this in a bit of detail. So as a business owner, your stakeholders are, number one, your family. You will be away from them for long hours. Let us take a deep breath and accept the elements of entrepreneurship that will make sure we run long. So what is the narrative we're telling them? So you have immediate family, wife, husband, children, immediate. Then you have extended, you have your parents, your siblings, because some days you will be working and there'll be a family function you cannot go to. That's stakeholder set number one. The other stakeholder set is your customers. Then you have your team, the people who work for you, who sell for you, who run the office for you. And many times we focus on having the salespeople, the marketing people knowing what we're doing, but we don't, the guard doesn't know, the cleaner doesn't know, the front desk person doesn't know. But if the phone rang and there's no one at the front desk, the guard should be able to pick the phone and say, "Good morning, this is Akiko Stories." And the person is like, "I'm looking for who does XYZ," and they can pass it on. So your complete staff team, your cleaner, your guard, your security personnel, front desk, everybody needs to know what you do. Then the next one is your suppliers. Even in service sector, there will be suppliers you enmesh with. I'll give an example. I used to be in the event business, spent 17 years there. I did not own a chair, a piece of fabric, nothing. But we executed events worth 10 million and above on a dime with quick turnaround times. Why? My suppliers were my best friends. So I had 3 people I went to consistently, but I had one who I know I could even send his team to sites to get measurements and briefings from clients as though they were my staff. That's a set you need to be able to inspire connection with. It was so interesting because I did an out-of-town event. We went down to the coast and he couldn't come, and I was saying, "You must come." And he said to me, "I have sent my 3 top employees who love you and work with you." And then he told me who he had sent, and I knew I didn't have to go to site. And because I was running a conference, the head of that team became my site manager. That's why suppliers are important. They went to site without me, and I said, "You see where this and this is? Yes, walk from there, look for the flat land, pitch the dome there." Because I had walked the land and I knew it was flat. When I went like a day and a half later, the dome was up in the right place. All the places I was going to put all of the tents, we were in agreement. And then I said, "You're my site manager." And he said, "Yes, ma'am." So everybody who went to site, I'm like, "Go talk to so-and-so." And he sorted. I went back to site 2 days later, 2 hours to event. I was blown away. Why? Because my supplier and I had enmeshed. Is it always that perfectly easy? In fact, it's never easy. You build a relationship. And then we have the regulators. When the regulators come to your office, I don't know about other countries, but Kenya likes showing up in offices. The Kenya Revenue Authority likes doing that. I think I've also heard in some sectors that they do the same in other countries. When they show up, do your people know what you do? Are the regulators able to speak clearly? And finally, the one that most of us MSMEs don't really like is your governance structure. Do you have a board? If you can't have an executive board that you pay, then you would have what we call an advisory board, because they are to help you grow and put in the things you need to be stable. But if they keep sending you in directions of things you don't do, then you have a problem. So those are the usual spaces you need to inspire connections.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that detailed description. We get paid for solving problems as founders.
Yes.
We have to talk about the knowledge of our product and what our product or service does to the client. You've talked about our teams being able to talk to not only regulators, but other stakeholders to clearly articulate our vision. How then do you get to connect with these different stakeholders to ensure that your vision remains clear all the time? Clear and inspirational all the time.
So vision is never communicated once. But I want to step back and ask, do you know your why? In the last episode, we were talking about your origin story and how to tell your why. And we asked the questions, why did you start your business? What problem do you solve? How does your experience or frustration make you the best person to solve that problem? And who are you solving it for? You have to have reduced all that into simple 100, 200 words maximum. If you can get down to 50, it will be even better. Why is that important? It's important because your vision must be clear and simple. Where there are too many words and too many explanations, misunderstanding, remember I said meaning is internal and individual. So if there are too many words and too many things, misunderstanding is going to be high on the scale, right? So if I'm to inspire my teams, for instance, and I'll use, we have another business with you, and all the talking we do, reduce everything we do down to just a couple of sentences. The reason that is important is because you need to communicate clearly. I'll give another example. So some of the stuff we do at Akiko is we build brands. So we do graphics and stuff like that, and content creation. So I got a referral to a guy who wanted me to do a profile for him. And coming from where I come from, my first question was, what's your vision? That's Asina, I don't have. What's your mission? Why do you exist? I don't have. So I'm like, so what do you need the profile for? I'm just an entrepreneur. All I need to do is show we've done work before. I'm like, so what work have you done? Do you have your partner list, your client list? And he said, all those things I don't have, can you develop them for me? I said, absolutely, I can. But I need your input on these ones because I cannot create a vision for you. And that's how I lost that particular job, because he was unwilling to do the work to articulate clearly what he does. Because like, we do this, we do this, we do this. I said, so do you have a holding company with subsidiaries? So he has just one company that whatever tender he could find, he creates a profile for that. So like, that's okay. But in terms of, and this is now where my business, my business experience became a challenge for him. I said, so how do you file your taxes? Do you have subsidiaries? It now became too difficult for him to think about. The reason I want founders to think about those things is because those are the things that guide your team on how to talk about your brand. So are you one company that does 3 million things, or are you a holding company with 3 subsidiaries? Because depending on the space you're going into, then you know which card to pull out. So if I'm in a real estate space, I have no business pulling out a garage if I have an auto repair garage. Because the conversations in the room are about improving the quality of your life, the place you live. But if I had an IT business, that's the card I'll pull out, because I can provide tech support, I can help with CCTV, I can help with providing consistent internet connections to all these other data things you need. So as a business owner, you must understand what business you're in, what problem you solve, and then simplify it to 2, maximum 3 sentences. So when your staff are asked, what do you do? They're like, we do 1, 2, 3 things. And this is who we serve. I said in a webinar I did a few weeks ago, I think a week ago, I said to people, if you sell to everybody, you sell to nobody. So that is why.
If you sell to everybody, you sell to nobody.
Yes.
One of my friends attended the meeting and told me, Kyesubire has told me to stop selling to everyone. And I asked, oh, so you were selling to everyone? I didn't even know. Anyway, that was on a light note. So we laughed about it. And he said he never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So understanding the need is important, because when we are selling ourselves, we are talking to our tribe. Who must you be when you're talking to this tribe? Because selling ourselves is not just about customer focus. It's communicating that solution.
Who must you be? There are many things that we all say, but I will pick 4 key things. You must be authentic. If I say I'm a business coach, I support MSMEs, I'm an MSME growth facilitator, I cannot have been working in corporate for 20 years and come and become an MSME facilitator. And I'll tell you why. From the corporate sector, the way things function there and the way the average MSME thinks, diametrically different east and west. So there will be a point the MSME will listen, but after a point they'll be like, Kyesubire don't work. Kyesubire things don't work. So I must be real. I cannot come into the MSME space and only talk about my wins, because we know 90% of MSMEs fail in their first 7 years. 75% fail in the first 5, but by year 7, only about 10% are left of those ones that started. So if I come into the space and I talk about the fact that I have made mistakes, I have failed businesses, then I can resonate better. So I must be authentic. I'm not saying put all your dirty linen out, but be real. If you have failed, you have failed. If you have struggled, you have struggled. So that ties into the second thing I want to talk about, honesty. Many of us stand on stages and we say, business is wonderful. I have all the free time I need. What you're not telling people is you've been at it for 25 years. You have built a complete team. You have an executive assistant and a personal assistant who do all the thinking. And there's a lady in business I have admired for a long time. She's in every meeting, everywhere. Then in November last year, it struck me. She has a PA. Even when you're trying to book her, you don't talk to her. You talk to her PA. And she's a serial entrepreneur. She has 3 businesses running that are all side by side. She's running the 4th one, and that's where her office is. But if you want to have conversations about the other business, you call PA for this business. When you want to, so the honest thing to say is, I have a system that works. Or I no longer sell in this market. Why did you leave the market? It wasn't working because I was inconsistent. Let's not make it be that I failed because Joe didn't pay me. So why didn't Joe pay you? You know the 5 whys, using the 5 whys to get into the truth of what actually happened. So I closed because my customers were not paying. Why weren't they paying? We used to invoice late. Why were you invoicing late? We're overwhelmed with other work. Why were you overwhelmed with everything? And I use that because I realized my problem in my previous businesses is I wasn't collecting because I didn't have the time to invoice. So when I started business number 5, the first thing I did, I found somebody to outsource finance to. So what do? Hi, please send an email as follows. Company, contact person, telephone number, email, scope of work amount, and she copies me. So that is off my desk. Whereas my invoices were 6 months late, now the latest I am is 21 days. She's on my case because I'm the one who doesn't pass the information. So be authentic and be honest, and then be clear. If I'm telling you what I do, the average person doesn't have 6 minutes to listen to me and then try to decipher. So short and clear go together. They have about 45 seconds before their mind begins to wander. And just when you go into a networking space, just try it. Watch people and see how quickly they begin to look around the room. You don't have to give them everything. Give them the thrust of what you do. The basic things. At the Africa MSME Collective, we support MSMEs to set up, stabilize, scale, and be sustainably successful. The next question they'll ask me, how do you do that? I'm like, oh, we do capacity, which is 1, 2, 3. We do community, which is 4, 5, 6. And we do conversations. And this show is part of our partnership with the Africa MSME Collective. Right there is 45 seconds. It's short and it's clear. So what kind of MSMEs do you work with? So you have to have your information cataloged and everything is brief. So you look at, and the thing that can help you be short and clear is look at frequently asked questions. What do people commonly ask you? And then you build your narrative around that. If you're authentic, honest, short, and clear, even selling to your team is easier because you have to sell this thing to your team. They have to buy into it. They have to accept to work with you. So as a founder, you have to be clear. And that's one of the biggest challenges I find with founders. We are hapapale all over the place. We're not clear. Then I say, I can't find the right salespeople. Could it be that you're the source of confusion? You as the founder? I think so. 85% of the time. I think we're the problem.
For us to stop being the problem, we have to be authentic, honest, clear, and brief or short. Clarity in briefness. And one of the tips you have given us to be able to do this is to look at the frequently asked questions about the nature of the businesses that we do. What other tips can you share with founders?
I think the biggest thing, well, I know the biggest thing we must do is understand who we are talking to and what they need. In my early years in the MSME space, I was working for a small agency, and we didn't quite understand the implications of the Revenue Authority. So one day they showed up at the offices, and because they had never filed taxes, it had been around for a while by the time I joined them. Because they had never filed taxes, the Revenue Authority came and began demanding a lot of money. And I remember all they needed for us to produce for them was audited accounts, and we didn't have. We didn't have audited accounts. So what we now had to do is we had to negotiate for time so that we can do the books. So we said, oh, I think we lied. I can't remember how we got out of it. But we said we'll get them the accounts within 2 weeks. The guy said, no, you have 3 days and we'll be back. I promise you we didn't sleep for 3 days because in the 3 days we had to pull up all our invoices, get them done, get an auditor to assess them and sign them off for a couple of years. So you have to understand what the person you're talking to needs. If I'm dealing with an angry client, I must get past my own ego and figure out what it is they want. My sister went to a restaurant and she had been told it was amazing, their lunch is good, but she went for breakfast. Breakfast service was a mess. All the recommendations, and she had gone and looked on Google, and the recommendation was a 5-star. So when she went in, she asked for tea. It was cold. Everything, half the stuff on the menu for breakfast was not there. So she went to and put a review on the Google My Business page. What is the standard response of an MSME? You delete the negative review. The owner of the business came and said, apologies. This is my number. Please get in touch with me. And what the owner did is she gave them a complimentary meal of any kind. They could go for breakfast, lunch, or supper. So they chose to go back for breakfast. And the lady was there because she let her know what day she was coming. And then the owner sat down and had a very candid conversation about the first experience. They had already put some stuff in place to improve. So you have to understand what your client needs. Sometimes people's complaints are because they're angry with somebody else, but you are the nearest hit. But what they need is an apology. So be kind and apologize. Apologies are not weaknesses. Apology is wisdom. So you have to understand what the person is looking for and connect to that need, resolve their problem. The second thing you have to do is, which comes in resolve the problem, you have to be able to provide a solution. Be able to solve. And sometimes you may not have the solution, but if you said to me, can I figure out how to sort this out for you? Can you give me 48 hours and I'll get back to you? In those 48 hours, you had better go and find somebody and get advice and come back with a solution. You get. But what you're doing is you're buying yourself time. You're asking for grace, but extending to them kindness. And then you must speak their language. And this one, I'll use a very interesting example. So we've been running a pilot of entrepreneurship programs for teens. We have a program for teens, we have a program for youth, and we've got a program for people already in business or the older demographic. And the class I was working with is young people from disadvantaged communities. So of course, me and my proper English, there's a place we part ways. So what it meant doing, because we are working through a workbook and the workbook is in English. So I will give them the explanations in English, but for emphasis, I'll slip into Kiswahili or, this Sheng blend. Now, I don't do the deep Sheng, but I do the one of intermixing, code switching between English and Swahili. And it worked. So one of the young men in the class, just because of the ability to connect to them in class, came and said, this is what I'm working through. My sponsor says I need to go to this school. This school is better. And of course, the sponsor is my age mate. So they're speaking to the sponsor in their language, and there's a disconnect. So I said to him, your sponsor is probably looking at financials, and the school you want to go to, it's better, but on paper, it's 30,000 shillings more expensive. So why is the difference? And we talked through the difference and we realized there is a benefit of this other school that is 30,000 shillings more. So then we crafted a narrative that he can take back to his sponsor to help them understand by sending him to this school, which the school fees is upfront 30,000 more, they're probably making a 15,000 benefit, because in this school, they would get all the products they need. He wanted to do hairdressing. In the other school, which is 30,000 cheaper, you buy everything. And everything else was even. So he had to come to the place where he could speak her financial language. So slam dunk, he's going to the school he wants to go to. And finally, just based on that, you must educate and inform. She didn't know that the school was more expensive because of product. She just thought the school was more expensive like that. She didn't know that all other factors were equal. So he was able to inform and educate. When you're able to, with kindness and no arrogance, business people, we have no space for arrogance. Please understand that. Especially when you're speaking with your audiences. With kindness, simplicity, and humility, you're able to just understand the need and ask questions until you figure that what exactly it is they need, provide the right solution, speak in the right language, and educate and inform people so that the next time they come back because this person took time to speak to me. I think those would be my top 4 after look at FAQs.
Thank you very much, Kyesubire. Storytelling helps us to execute strategy. And you have reminded us that we need to understand the need of our communities, have a solution, speak their language, and educate them. As we wind up the show, what is that one thing you would like the founders and prospective founders and their teams to take away or be able to implement as soon as possible, immediately? I know, right?
I'm about to say something very, very radical.
Radical is allowed. It's about 360.
It's 360, yeah?
Yes, we are looking at it from all angles. How do we make our founders better? How do we help them articulate their stories, sell their products?
Get out of your head. In your brain, you have the best product on planet Earth. In your mind. Get out of there and go and listen to what your respective stakeholders are saying. You will hear things you don't like, I promise you, without fail. And take everything you've had and review it against your vision and realign. Remember, we say in business, your customer is the person who people buy from people they know, like, and trust.
Mm-hmm.
But your customer is the one who's willing and able to pay consistently for the product. So if you're going to get to the place where they know, like, and trust you enough to buy from you, you must be in their space, meeting needs in a way that resonates with them. So get out of your head. In your mind, you have the best product, but in the customer's sight, is it the best product? So whatever your vision is, every time you share your vision, share it ready to listen. And not listen to respond, but listen to understand your audience better. So get out of your head and listen.
Listen. Get out of your head and listen. When you listen, you'll understand the need. You will have a solution. You will speak their language and you will educate your customers. And in that way, you will inspire the connections that you need. Thank you very much, Kyesubire. This has been the 360-degree brand story, where brands come alive one brushstroke at a time, in collaboration with the African MSME Collective, building SMEs and ecosystem players to be able to reach their clients. Thank you very much for joining us today and spending a few minutes with us on the show. Kindly subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button, listen, and send us messages. Where are your challenges? Where are your pain points? What would you like to know about connecting with your stakeholders? This is your host, Joe Mukoko, signing off and wishing you a fantastic, connection-filled, inspired-filled day in the field. Listen to your customers. Listen to your customers. You will get to know what their needs are. Until next time, have a good one. Enjoy and look for inspiration all around you. It will help you build your vision. Thank you.